The rain hammered against the windshield as Matthew sat in his yellow taxi, hands trembling on the steering wheel. Through the blur of water and streetlights, he watched her, Emma, standing under the hospital awning, her scrubs soaked, her shoulders shaking with sobs. His phone buzzed, another message from his father. "The board meets in 20 minutes. Your inheritance, your company, everything you've worked for. Be here now or lose it all." Matthew looked at the hospital entrance, then at his phone. Emma didn't know who he really was, didn't know that the beat-up taxi he drove wasn't his only car, that parked in a garage across the city sat a fleet of vehicles worth more than most people would earn in a lifetime. She thought he was just Matthew, the kind taxi driver who always seemed to be there when she needed a ride after her double shifts. She'd just lost her mother, and he was the only person she'd called. He turned the key in the ignition. The choice he made in that moment would destroy him. But perhaps, he thought, some loves are worth dying for. The taxi rolled forward, away from everything he'd ever known. Before we continue, if you love stories about sacrifice and impossible choices, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss where this goes. Now, let's go back to where it all began. 3 months earlier, Matthew Alexander Hawthorne III stood in his corner office on the 47th floor of Hawthorne Industries, Manhattan stretched beneath him like a kingdom. At 28, he'd been groomed his entire life for this moment, to take over his father's empire, a conglomerate worth $4.3 billion. But something had been gnawing at him for months, a hollowness that all the yacht parties, all the galas, all the women who wanted him for his last name couldn't fill. "You look miserable," his younger sister Claire said from the doorway, "like a prince trapped in a tower. Don't be dramatic. Then stop acting like your life is a prison sentence." She crossed her arms. "When's the last time you did something real, Matthew? Something that wasn't calculated or strategic or approved by the board?" That conversation echoed in his mind 2 days later when he witnessed the accident. He'd been walking through Chelsea, trying to clear his head, when he saw it happen. A young woman in scrubs, clearly exhausted from a hospital shift, stepping into the crosswalk. She didn't see the delivery van running the red light. Matthew shouted, lunged forward, pulled her back by her bag just as the van screamed past, missing her by inches. They both fell to the sidewalk, hearts pounding. "Oh my God," she breathed, looking up at him with eyes the color of dark honey. You saved my life. Are you okay?" He helped her up, noticing her hands were shaking. "I think so. I work night shifts at St. Luke's. I'm always so tired after, and I wasn't paying attention." She laughed, slightly manic. "I'm Emma Chen." "Matthew," he said, and for reasons he couldn't explain, didn't give his last name. "Thank you, Matthew." She looked at him like he was something miraculous. "How can I ever repay you?" He should have walked away, should have said it was nothing, gone back to his life. Instead, he heard himself say, "Let me buy you coffee. You look like you could use it." They sat in a diner for 3 hours. She told him about her mother, who was sick with late-stage cancer, how Emma worked double shifts at the hospital to pay for treatments insurance wouldn't cover, how she dropped out of medical school to become a nurse because it was faster, because her mother needed her now, not in 4 years. "Sorry," Emma said, wiping her eyes. "You save someone's life and they trauma dump on you. Great trade." "Don't apologize," Matthew said, and meant it. "When's the last time someone asked how you were doing?" She stared at him, something shifting in her expression. I don't remember." When they parted, Matthew couldn't stop thinking about her. For the first time in years, he'd felt real. No pretense, no performance, just 2 people connecting. He wanted more.
"You want to do what?" Claire stared at her brother like he'd lost his mind.
I want to spend time with her, get to know her. But if she knows who I am, she'll want you for your money. I get it. Claire shook her head. But Matthew, pretending to be someone you're not? That's insane. Is it? Dad always said I'd never understand the real world from up here. Well, now I want to see it. It took 2 weeks to set up. Matthew used a shell company to purchase a taxi medallion and an old Crown Victoria. He rented a modest apartment in Queens under an assumed name. He learned the routes, the streets, the rhythms of the city he'd only ever seen from penthouses and limousines. And then, as if fate was real, he saw her again. Emma stood on a street corner near the hospital at 11 p.m., her arm raised for a cab. Matthew pulled up, heart hammering. "St. Luke's to Queens?" she said, sliding into the back seat. Then she looked up, recognition dawning. "Wait, Matthew? The guy who saved me?" He'd planned for this. "You remember me. I started driving taxi a couple weeks ago. Crazy coincidence, right?" "Crazy," she echoed, smiling. "How've you been?" "Good. You?" Her smile faltered. "Mom's not doing great, but I'm managing." "If you ever need to talk," he said, meeting her eyes in the rearview mirror, "I'm a good listener. Comes with the job." Over the next month, Matthew engineered their meetings. He learned her schedule, was always nearby when she needed a ride. They talked about everything. Her dreams of opening a community clinic, his fabricated stories about growing up in Queens, their shared love of old movies and jazz music. He fell in love with the way she'd fall asleep in his back seat after particularly brutal shifts, trusting him completely. The way she'd light up when talking about her mother's good days. The way she saw the world, not as something to conquer, but as something to heal. And then, one night, after he'd driven her home, she leaned through the front window. "Matthew, I know this is probably unprofessional, but would you want to get dinner sometime? Like, not in a taxi?" His heart stopped. "I'd love that." "Really?" Her smile could power the city. "I know I'm probably not your usual type." "Emma, you're everything I didn't know I was looking for." She kissed him then, soft and sweet, and Matthew felt like he was finally alive. Maintaining the lie became its own kind of torture. During the day, Matthew would sit in board meetings making decisions that affected thousands of lives. Then at night, he'd pick Emma up in his taxi, pretending he'd spent his day navigating traffic. He'd take her to diners he'd never noticed existed, walk through neighborhoods he'd only ever seen from helicopter windows. "You know what I love about you?" Emma said one night as they sat on her fire escape sharing lo mein from a takeout container. "You're real. Everyone I've dated before wanted me to be someone else, more ambitious, less focused on my family. But you see me." The guilt was acid in his throat. "Emma." "No, let me finish." She took his hand. "My whole life has been about taking care of everyone else. My mom, my patients, everyone. But with you, I feel like I can just breathe. Like I can be myself, and that's enough. But you don't know who I am, and I'm terrified you'll hate me when you find out," he thought. The crisis came 6 weeks into their relationship. Emma's mother needed an experimental treatment, one that insurance refused to cover. The cost? $150,000. "I don't know what to do," she sobbed in his arms. "I've maxed out every credit card, taken every extra shift. She's got maybe 3 months without this treatment. Matthew, I can't watch her die knowing I could have saved her." Every fiber of Matthew's being screamed at him to write the check. He could solve this with a phone call, one transfer from one of his accounts, money he wouldn't even miss. But if he did, she'd ask questions, she'd discover the truth, and he'd lose her. "What if," he started carefully, "what if I could help you raise the money? We could set up a crowdfunding campaign, reach out to local businesses." "That would take too long." She pulled away, wiping her eyes. "I appreciate it, but unless you've got a secret trust fund hidden somewhere, I need a miracle." The irony was unbearable. That night, Matthew made a decision that would haunt him.
He created an anonymous donation to Emma's crowdfunding page, $100,000, routed through enough shell companies and foreign accounts that it couldn't be traced to him. When Emma called him screaming with joy, saying a guardian angel had saved her mother's life, Matthew felt like the worst person alive. "I can't believe someone would do this," she cried. "There's still good in the world, Matthew. There's still hope." He held her, saying nothing, dying inside.
His father found out about Emma 3 weeks later. "Matthew?" Richard Hawthorne's voice was ice over the phone. "We need to talk. Now." In his father's office, Matthew found a folder on the desk. Inside, photographs of him with Emma, surveillance reports, background checks. "A nurse?" His father's lip curled. "You're sleeping with a nurse, pretending to be a taxi driver. Have you lost your mind?" "I love her." "You love the idea of her, the fantasy of being normal. But that's not who you are, Matthew. You're a Hawthorne. You have responsibilities that I never asked for." "Too bad. In 6 weeks, the board votes on your succession. If they find out about this charade, if they think you're unstable, they'll vote you out. Your cousins would love nothing more than to take control. Everything I've built, everything your grandfather built, gone." "Maybe I don't want it." His father leaned forward. "Then you're a fool. That girl, Emma, she's struggling now, isn't she? Working herself to death for her mother? You know what happens to people like her, Matthew? They break, they burn out, they grow bitter. Is that who you want to tie yourself to, or do you want to keep the resources to actually help people like her? Hundreds of them, thousands." The logic was poisonous, but Matthew couldn't entirely refute it. "End it," his father said, "or I'll end it for you. The board vote is in 6 weeks. After you're confirmed, you can do whatever you want, but until then, you will not jeopardize this family's legacy for a nurse you've known for 3 months." Matthew left his father's office feeling like he was drowning. He tried to distance himself from Emma, but she noticed immediately. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked one night, tears in her eyes. "You've been pulling away, and I don't understand why." "I didn't do anything wrong." "Then what is it? Talk to me, Matthew. I thought we were honest with each other." The hypocrisy of that statement nearly broke him. I'm dealing with some things." "Then let me help you. That's what people who love each other do. They help each other." "You love me?" "Of course I do, you idiot." She laughed through her tears. "I've been in love with you since that second ride when you quoted Casablanca. I just didn't want to scare you off." "Emma, I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But Matthew, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. You're my person, and I'll wait for as long as you need until you're ready to let me all the way in." "You don't know what you're asking," he thought. "I'm not who you think I am."
The call came at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday. "Matthew," Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "It's my mom. The hospital called. She collapsed. They don't know if—" Her voice broke. "Can you come, please?" He was there in 15 minutes, still in the taxi, not caring that he'd driven 90 miles per hour through Manhattan. He found Emma in the ICU waiting room, destroyed. "She's stable," she said, "but the treatment, it's not working as well as they hoped. The doctor says maybe 6 months, maybe a year. But Matthew, she's only 53. She should have decades." He held her while she shattered and made a decision. Fuck the board. Fuck his inheritance. He was going to save the woman he loved from this pain. He called his father that night. "I need you to arrange something," Matthew said. "Emma's mother needs the best care. I want her transferred to Sloan Kettering. I want the top oncologists. I want everything." "And how will you explain this to your nurse girlfriend?" "I don't care. I'll tell her the truth, all of it." "You'll lose her." "Maybe, but at least her mother will live. Isn't that worth it?" There was a long pause. "You really do love her?" "Yes." "Then you're about to learn the hardest lesson about love, son. Sometimes it's not enough." The arrangements were made.
Emma's mother was transferred within 24 hours. Emma was suspicious but grateful, assuming the anonymous donor had struck again. And then, the day before Matthew planned to tell her everything, Emma found out on her own. She'd left her phone in his taxi. When he went to her apartment to return it, he found her sitting on the steps, holding a newspaper. The headline? Hawthorne heir plays commoner. Billionaire's son caught slumming with hospital worker. One of his father's rivals had leaked the story, with photos, with details. Matthew, don't. She stood up, and the look on her face was something beyond anger, beyond betrayal. It was grief. Matthew Alexander Hawthorne III, $4.3 billion. That's you? I can explain. You've been lying to me this entire time. Every conversation, every moment, every time I cried to you about money problems, while you're worth... God, you must have thought I was pathetic. Poor little Emma struggling to save her mom, while you could have solved everything with pocket change. That's not true. Emma, I love you. You don't love me. You loved playing pretend. You loved feeling like a good person by slumming it with the working class. But this was never real for you, was it? This was just, what, a social experiment? No, I fell in love with you, the real you, and I wanted you to know the real me. I don't even know who you are. She was crying now, furious and devastated. Everything you told me was a lie. Your life, your family, your struggles, all of it was fake, and I gave you everything. I trusted you with my heart, with my fears, with my mother's life. Wait, your mother? Emma, I'm the one who arranged... Her face went white. What? The transfer to Sloan Kettering, the anonymous donor, that was me. I couldn't watch you suffer. She slapped him, hard. How dare you? How dare you make me feel grateful to you for doing the bare minimum a decent human being would do? You had the power to help us from the beginning, but instead you turned it into this savior fantasy where you get to be the hero. That's not what I... Get out. Get out and don't ever contact me again. Emma, please! I said get out. Matthew left, and the world went silent.
Which brings us back to that rainy night, the night Emma's mother died. Matthew had stayed away for 3 weeks, honoring Emma's wish, but when Claire called to tell him she'd seen the obituary, he couldn't stay away. He'd driven to the hospital, knowing Emma would need a ride home, knowing she'd be destroyed, not caring that she hated him. He just needed to be there. And she'd called him. Despite everything, she'd called him. As he drove through the rain toward the hospital, his phone buzzed again. His father, the board, his entire future waiting. But some loves are worth dying for. He pulled up to the hospital. Emma saw the taxi, recognized it, and her face crumpled with new tears, of anger, of relief, of something more complicated than either. She got in without a word. They drove in silence for 10 minutes before she spoke. "Why did you come?" "Because you called." "I shouldn't have. I don't even know why I—" She pressed her hands to her face. "God, Matthew, she died. My mom died, and the last thing I did was fight with her about you, about whether I should forgive you. She said I should. She said anyone who loved me enough to ruin his own life for me was worth forgiving. But I was so angry. Matthew, I'm not finished." She lowered her hands. "I looked you up, read everything. Do you know what I found? That your father has been trying to force you to marry some senator's daughter, that you've been refusing for 3 years, that you've turned down every woman your father's paraded in front of you. Emma, where is this? And then I found something else, a foundation, the Hawthorne Medical Initiative, founded 6 years ago after your mother died of cancer, a foundation that's paid for treatments for over 3,000 families who couldn't afford care, that's funded cancer research, built community clinics, trained nurses in underserved areas." Matthew said nothing. "You did that. Not for press, not for tax breaks. The foundation is quiet. Barely anyone knows about it. You did it because you understand loss, because you've been trying to save other people's mothers."
My mother's death nearly destroyed my father. I watched him become someone I didn't recognize. So I promised myself I'd do something with the money, something that mattered. And then you met me, and I was doing exactly what your foundation was trying to do, just smaller, more personal. I didn't fall in love with you because of your mother's illness, Emma. I fell in love with you because you're kind and brilliant, and you see the world as something to heal. Because when I'm with you, I'm not the Hawthorne heir, or a responsibility, or a chess piece in my father's games. I'm just Matthew, and for the first time in my life, that felt like enough. Emma was quiet for a long time. I want to hate you. I know. I want to tell you that the lie is unforgivable, that you can't just buy your way out of this with cancer foundations and heroic drives through the rain. I know that too. But I can't stop loving you. She said it like a confession. I've tried. God, I've tried. And I hate that about myself, that even knowing you lied, I still want you. What does that make me? Human, Matthew said. It makes you human. He pulled up to her apartment, turned off the car, faced her fully. I'm not going to the board meeting. I'm not taking over the company. My father will disown me. My cousins will take control, and I'll probably lose most of the money. But I need you to know, I choose you. Not because I think it'll fix things, but because I can't be the person my father wants me to be anymore. You showed me there's another way to live. Emma stared at him, tears streaming down her face. You really mean that? Yes. You'd give up billions of dollars. I'd give up everything. You're an idiot, she whispered, and then she kissed him. It wasn't a fairy tale kiss. It was messy and desperate and tasted like salt and grief, but it was real. I'm still angry at you, she said when they broke apart. I don't know if I can trust you again, and I don't know if love is enough to fix what you broke. I know, but I want to try. God help me, I want to try. Matthew held her face in his hands. Then we'll try. No more lies, no more pretending, just us, figuring it out together. Just us, she echoed. They sat in that taxi for hours, talking about everything, the pain, the betrayal, the impossible path forward. And somewhere in those hours, as rain drummed on the roof and the city slept around them, they began to heal.
6 months later, Emma opened an envelope that arrived at her apartment. Inside was a letter written in elegant script she didn't recognize. Dear Emma, you don't know me, but I knew your mother. My name is Richard Hawthorne. Before she died, your mother called me. She told me that if Matthew gave up his inheritance for you, I was to give you this letter. You should know something about my son. The taxi driver routine? That wasn't the first time he'd done it. For 3 years, Matthew has been spending his nights driving that taxi, talking to people, learning about their lives. The foundation he runs, half of those families he's helped came from conversations in that back seat. He didn't create a fake life to deceive you, Emma. He showed you the life he's been trying to live all along, a life I've been trying to take from him since his mother died, because I was too afraid to lose him the way I lost her. He chose you, and in doing so, he taught me something I'd forgotten, that love isn't about control or legacy or preserving what we've built. It's about letting go. The board meeting he skipped? I postponed it. He's still CEO. I've restructured the company so that 60% of all profits now go to the Hawthorne Medical Initiative. Matthew doesn't know this yet. I wanted you to be the one to tell him. My son gave up everything for you, but he was wrong about one thing. He never had to choose between you and the money. He just had to choose himself. Take care of him, Emma, and let him take care of you. Richard. Emma sat on her fire escape, the letter trembling in her hands, and called Matthew. Hey, he answered. You okay? Matthew, she said, laughing and crying at once, your father just did something impossible. I know. He just called me.
Emma, I don't understand. He loved you enough to let you go. There was a long pause. Yeah, I guess he did. Come over? I'm already on my way. Emma looked out at the city lights, at the impossible, broken, beautiful world, and smiled. Some loves don't just survive, they transform everything they touch.